Hello, and welcome to Diana's Makerspace on this September 26th. I'd like to talk about some of my art ideas and how I came about them. The biggest part of my art ideas came actually when I was in third grade. Basically, it started when I used to make dioramas and models, mostly sort of ships, planes, cars. And the first one was a diorama. This is something I acquired a few years ago. This was a cardboard house that was put on a giveaway table, and then one person gave me the Pikachu, and another person about a few years ago also gave me um, this one figure here. You can see that they're my parents and my dad's urn. Well, when I go back though, this I sort of always had a different type of making area when I do stuff. Just you can see one laptop there which runs Linux and no one that runs Linux. So I always believe in basically two separate systems. And basically, the HP is actually about that's actually about 8 years old. The gamer is about 5 years old, and then you can see a little bit of my craft table. But the thing which I find interesting, which really inspired me was when I was in college. So my art professor was David Holmes at UW Parkside. And what David Holmes did, basically, he sort of believed in art as a living diorama. So what happened was, where my dioramas are 1/6, living dioramas of 1/6 scale, he actually would make them full scale. And he consulted for many movie companies and many movies. So actually, what happened? You actually walked into the art. You actually didn't observe. You actually and he developed their own script language for some of his works. So everything was always full scale. But for me though, um, I always worked on miniature scale. So basically, it is either 1/32 or like today 1/6 in that though, and sometimes HO 172. But the main thing about it is reason I like 1/6 scales, I can get the detail, and also this works with the space I have and also with the materials. Because about a week ago, one I helped one neighbor, and he was telling me about something. He said, "Well, doll collecting is a very expensive hobby." Yes, it can be, but what happens is, I make a lot of my stuff like that. Though some of it I buy basically from stores, but others like the sofa, like the living room cushions. I made all that through buying fabric and sewing it with my sewing machine. The bed is something I bought online. I added a back, and then the house now. It's an interesting thing. That was all bought with foam board, basically. $1 sheet foam board, uh, uh, hot glue, and also tacky glue. And basically, I used the natural dimensions of the foam board to make the diorama. And dioramas is something I've made since third grade. My first one was actually a paper diorama, which is like three-sided like this. And I remember a friend of mine, Donna, how she said, "Well, it looked nice." She said, "But you need to do this." And at first I was mad, but then I modified the original diorama, and this is where I get the three-sided design now like that though, and also how to keep things sort of not develop too fast, so I can think of how to develop it better. And part of the thing is basically just having a little bit of a workstation. This is why I so call my drafting CAD and creative station. Behind this is a painting I did in art class with David Holmes as my professor. I actually won the art competition because it's based upon a certain design by a certain painter, that's very famous, that did geometric paintings. But he also said basically the way I did the tension, as you notice, with the circle trying to get um, past the opening, and one of the triangles having sort of a light gray there. And what happened was the other thing where I won the competition it can be shown in 4 different orientations. And the orientation that's shown is the orientation that my parents liked it. And that though they liked in this orientation, they actually hung it in the living room. That's where you can see the string hanging there. And um, that's part of the thing about I'm glad I was encouraged artistically, musically, and artistically, and painting, and in making dioramas, and even basically when I do Arduino, I consider art because basically the art is basically trying to do the layout so that basically everything is laid out and looks structurally nice and serviceable, but also artistic. So something that basically someone can do and that others can do. And I choose a media of 2 boards because I want to see what I can do on 2 boards, not rather a big board design. And you can see I keep a little box of all my stuff, and also some art things. This is one of the mannequins. This is Jill, and that though. And this is Stephanie, a mannequin that I bought online. But also you can see I tried different outfits. The top is actually a hobbyist outfit that I bought for my size from a Gum Rewards, but I thought it looked good to put on there. And the skirt is actually my size. It actually looks good. But I did find out a way how I can make my own skirts from it, basically, because basically Stephanie's waist is one half mine, so I just go twice around on the front, twice around the back, and that's it. Another thing I did too is sometimes I do my art by looking at things, just basically by accident. This formed by cutting out different pieces of what I made, and I think it's a nice abstract representation. So sometimes some things form just by random. But as you can see, basically, the type of art I like to do is dioramas like that, though, and it's always something I've done since the 3rd grade. In college, my biggest inspiration and mentorship was through David Holmes, and when I did transition, he was the first one that found out that I told about my transition in that though from MDF is like about 2000. And what happened, another professor finally says, "Oh yeah, we've known a long time." And the thing is, what happens though is I always found an art community to be very supportive of my transition work, even on internet when I started to come out. I have a few paintings in the Toronto museum, digital museum, that was done by a few friends from the LGBT that are LGBTQ plus. Um, so this for me is a nice hobby, and basically I like doing this type of art as well as abstract painting, and also creative tech, and that though. Now the thing is, what happens is when I do all this, you can see sometimes I get some material, and this is a mock-up of one book I recently published, Middle School Wish by myself. So if you different thoughts on my thing in middle school and what I think, how the future would look if I 100 years after my birth, or future of someone who's transitioning in middle school. And as infant from past projects, you can see the Barbie car. It's progressing along. I'm going to be able to get additional things to complete it, and also get some axles and try it out. But also, I want to add a radio control module so I can do a radio control version of it. However, the whole thing about doing this is I found out you have to have a space where you can be creative, you're not bothered, and also you don't always have to set up and tear down, because as you can see from my table, there's still some stuff left on the table. However, the biggest inspiration has always been my parents, and also David Holmes, basically who inspired me. Also, Professor Beecham Robinson, who is my communications professor. And I see if I can find something that shows some of the things. Well, like this portrait, like this photo here. This was one where I took where I used my knowledge from applied instructional media to make a photo. And this is a game that I used. And then this is sort of a Photoshop app where I imagine myself what I look like in a fashion from Chanel in 2023. That's how my face looked in 2023, along with my hair. Like I had more hair back then. And the other thing is basically with David Holmes with Beecham too is also in David Holmes is to do a collage. How to do different types of collages. And how to make a use of a space. And it's always important basically to realize that when you make a space, to make a space that's very useful. This is how I use part of my kitchen. You can see there's my parents, my Uncle Bruce, Rose, Dale, Sandy, a good friend of mine, Princess Sandy's Chihuahua. And what I do when I make a space, you can see like here, you can see I have a craft space where I have some things there. One of my Singer sewing machines, and then Keurig coffee maker, um, a business style phone when I do get some good work. Some things to make cooking easier, an air fryer, and then a toaster oven, microwave toaster, and then basically a coffee maker. With a creative space, though, it's always important to also make sure that works with you and that it is functional. Another thing from applied instructional media, working with David Holmes as my art professor, is another collage basically about my early transition and some things to motivate me. This is the first Photoshop picture that I did in my early transition. I actually used a Cosmopolitan's face maker software, which came out in 1999, and this was from an advertisement that was around that period, like that though, from Mademoiselle magazine. This is another one that's modified from Shape magazine, partially using a picture with Gabrielle Lease with my face on there, and then modifying it just a little bit, adding the skirt. And then, as you can see with the bottom, I did a little thing with the brush just to add like a little different type of skin texture, experimenting. And this one is actually from 2001. This was another, again using Cosmopolitan face update software. Nowadays there's different face maker software, but that was the first newest one, and again from an advertisement. So it's like a wish board of how I wish to do my transition back then, because I was working half-time and living half-time. Now when we go in the bedroom, you can see another collage I have of different things. On the bottom is two science fiction things. This is from top one's from Night of the Comet, which I always liked. I thought it was a good movie on many levels. And another one is from a Saturday morning TV series I used to watch, Electro Woman and Dyna Girl. And another one is from another science fiction series I used to watch, is Isis, and then also some nice some different also some different things of modern culture, like that though, because. And again, this is a big collage. This is a big collage I made of different types of fashion, and also about showing looks of confidence. The other thing what I like here is this is one basically showing a nice thing that I saw basically about, I forget word. Take your time and don't rush. Don't think about it. Don't think about the entire tryout at once. Only think about the skill, cheer, or dance you are executing in the moment. Take deep breaths and tell yourself that you can do it. Be loud, confident, smile, but most importantly, have fun. And that's from Bailey Pace. I keep that as very good inspiration. A little bit of another one of my collages like that though. So this is like a full size collage. I call it two friends. Both of them are wearing different types of petticoats, getting ready for a night out. And again, a library, a little bit of a library. And this collage is an inspirational one because this is showing basically about when you can live fully, and also showing a song by Susan Vega Luca that talks about people who may be abused, and basically it gives encouragement on overcoming it. And it's very inspirational for me, basically during a tough time in my life in the early 90s and late 80s. Um, this is another collage of fashion, and also from LGBT as well. It says, transitioning is a form of self awareness, not because I hated myself, but because I love myself enough and believe I deserve to be happy while I'm still alive. And I thought that's always a wonderful thing to think about because sometimes others get confused about that. Another form of my library, and another form of my library are different reference books. And the whole thing is basically it's just with my art skill is I like doing the dioramas because the dioramas is something that I always started with basically from third grade. Also liked in college when Professor Holmes did the full size dioramas that you could walk through, and so in a way this is my 1/6 scale diorama, um, in that though because what happens with that, um, it allows me to do different things and explore different ideas. Even like with the lab, basically, the Moog synthesizer, the Ward's wheel to wheel, my own laptop design. I'm gonna make a full size mock-up, and soon I'll show what that looks like. And also the other another bit of the full size laptop design, and some of my designs mixed with designs that I purchased. Um, this one is where I basically added a ruffle foot and was able to make a ruffle skirt for the Barbie. And then I used pinking shears to fix it. Um, so let me know what you think. I'm on YouTube, X, Pinterest, Facebook, and Blue Sky. This has been Diana's Makerspace, a little bit of the philosophy of my art and those who helped me in the past, as Professor Holmes, Beecham Robinson, and also others, as well as my parents who encouraged me to keep doing my art, even though I went through difficulties, and that's always kept me going. Well, thank you for listening, and I'll talk with you again.